Yep. Hey guys, welcome to Jerry's Live. As always, I'm your host, Amy Gardner-Dean. I apparently now have the creep and crud that you three ladies have so lovingly passed through the department. So, yeah, Amanda's like, me? What? Yeah, I think, well, that's right. You were the one that didn't get it. It's your turn next week. So I apologize in advance if I'm a little kind of harder to hear than normal, and my ears are ringing kind of loud. So if I don't hear you ladies when you ask the questions, just say it a little bit louder. You may have to take one for the team and holler this time. So
we got the new microphone, so hopefully everybody can hear
all
us
right.
a little better.
Well, that's good. Hopefully that would be, they'll just hear how lovely I sound. Okay, well, great. This week we're going to be doing beginner graphite pencil drawing. The episode is JL91. So if you're playing along at home, you're going to, on the jerrysartorama.com website, you're going to type in JL91. Those are your keywords. Hit that, it will pull up the very short list of products that we're showing this week.
The shortest one ever.
It is. Other than some of those Christmas sets that we did, where it was like just a couple items. So, but I mean, that's cool. Makes it easier. We are going to be featuring some different products today. A few of them are new to Jerry's or newer that you might be interested in. We will go over those really quickly in just a minute. Katie, the Valentine's Day drawing, is that still happening?
Not up yet.
It's not up yet.
Not
Okay.
up yet, so I don't know. Just stay tuned. It may or it
Okay.
may not.
Oh, okay. All right, so we should not talk about that then. All right, well, keep an eye on social
We're
media.
definitely going to have some Valentine's contests going
Okay.
on. I just not.
All right, so Valentine's contest, keep an eye on social media for that because there's going to be gift cards. So keep an eye on that. If you don't follow it, follow, so then when it pops up, you can make sure to enter so you don't accidentally skip it and then the day after Valentine's Day go, no. All right, good to know. We're gonna go ahead and jump right in because we're gonna try to do a couple different exercises today with drawing live. For this, it seems like drawing skills are something that even, I mean, professional artists are more or less proficient at, but it's something that if you've ever been, even in a higher end gallery, Katie, don't you think, where you'll be looking at stuff and you'll be like, they'll have some mad painting skills and you can tell that their drawing skills are just not up to snuff, where something just looks off if it's a realistic work and you're not sure what it is, whether it's that on a portrait that 3/4 view just isn't right, whether it's you know, something where they've got perspective going on, something where even with the people that involved, like all of a sudden it looks like they're wearing like a baseball mitt for a hand because they...
These are hard.
No, they are, but that's also a basic drawing skill, and there's ways that even seasoned professionals can kind of go back and take some techniques, brush up on them, and that will help them with kind of maybe some of the issues that they know that they face as artists. Drawing also seems like the scariest thing to people because it's the surest example of whether your work is technically proficient or not, right? Up front and personal, it's pretty hard to hide poor drawing skills. So it's like everything else. It's interesting. This is a book that and it's very threadbare and beat up from all the years that I've carried it, but it's Drawing on the Artist Within by Betty Edwards. A lot of people know drawing on the right side of the brain. This goes into more the psychology of, especially if you're going to teach, how people see and learn when they're drawing, and kind of ways that you can kind of troubleshoot as you're seeing them work. Things that maybe they're not catching that they can catch. I used to teach at a men's federal prison years ago before I had kids, and I took that book and did some experimenting with some of the people that did not have any basic drawing skills to kind of start with, and trained them in some kind of very weird, unorthodox ways, and was able to get some guys that got really proficient because they had time to practice. And that's what it is. Everybody wants to say it's oh, you know, especially if you've come from a family of artists, oh, it's inherited, it's the genes. It's not that. It's about taking the time and practicing, trying new things. Whether they're successful or not, it doesn't matter. All of that compounds itself and builds technique-wise over time, you just subconsciously don't know that. So, so this is a great book. Some of the things that we're going to do today are kind of based loosely off of some of the things that she talks about in there. So let's jump right in. We'll look at some of these products and then we'll kind of go from there. The set that we're going to be using today is the Cezanne Graphite pencil tin set of 12. It is from 2H all the way up to 12B, but don't get alarmed. It's essentially what, 9B is. It's just they skip from 6 to 8 to 10 to 12. So right there, it's the same amount as a regular. I know, it's like, I don't understand that, but 10B doesn't make it any darker. It's, then 12B doesn't make it any darker than like a regular 9B. So, but it's a crazy, stupid price. It's $7.69 for a set of 12 pencils. And the crazy thing about that is when you're talking about high-end graphite pencils, you're talking about bonded leads. What bonding is they've got that little piece of pencil lead that goes through it, then they've got the wood, they actually glue it in place in that wood barrel. And what that does is if you drop the pencil and it breaks all inside that pencil, as you're sharpening, you don't keep getting those pieces falling out and falling out and falling out and falling out. They will stay glued in there until you get down to the point of where it's actually sticking out of the barrel where it breaks. Is there something that I might talk about? The book name is Drawing on the Artist Within from Betty Edwards.
Thank you.
All right, it's her second one of those. Okay, so getting a bonded pencil where you've got decent graphite and stuff in a set that's this inexpensive, usually figure that you're going to pay $1 a pencil is the average for getting a drawing set of pencils. Maybe slightly less when it's in a tin, but then you figure it's got the tin and all that other stuff that goes with it. This is a really good deal for a great set of a range of darknesses that would make it easier kind of with learning. And this is I went ahead and did this so you could kind of see earlier. If you can zoom in on that, Katie. We've got from 2H all the way down to the 12B. What I did with this was very light lines, not shading, just doing lines. The next one I kind of colored gently, so there's some pressure on the pencil, but not a lot. And kind of rubbed it back and forth. So it's not, these I'm actually picking up the pencil at the end of the line. This I'm not picking it up, I'm just kind of using what you do kind of with colored pencils when you're just kind of blocking in some color. This one I pushed hard, applied pressure, and then scrubbed it really good, kind of in the same way. So you can see what a 2H is going to give you: H, HB, B, 2B, 3B. You start getting up into the 4B with those lines, the pencil starts becoming much softer. It's incredibly easy to lay down the graphite. It's harder to get those really nice, crisp, fine lines that you're going to find up in this range. So, which is still fine. You're using these darker pencils more to enhance actually lines and make some areas darker or lighter. You're not going to be using these to do your underdrawings because that's going to be too black and it's going to be more difficult to remove. 2H versus 12B. What does that mean? Everybody's always like, I don't understand. Are we, they're grinding up boys and putting them in there? I mean, does it make sense? Does it make sense? It's hard H, okay, hardness, that makes sense.
Right.
What this is the higher the number in H, the more clay to graphite you're gonna get. Graphite is your blackness, okay? It's a milled powder that's put in with clay to be able to get that hardness in a lead, so when you sharpen it, it's not falling out. So the higher that number in H, the more clay, the less graphite. So you can get a much harder, finer line. It's very thin, but you can't, this is not dark at all. If you wanted something dark, especially something that's gonna show up on camera, it shows up on the, thing, but not like these other ones down here that are almost shiny. There's so graphite in them, so much graphite. So once you get to HB, you're starting to get more graphite. B on, it's a lot less clay. That's why these are so incredibly soft. So you can see just the same pressure on those lines, how nice and thin and controlled these are. and then how much thicker these are. From putting that down to the end of the line, this line gets exponentially wider. It's harder to see probably on the overhead here, but I can feel in putting that pencil down, it's thinner, it gets, as you pull further and further, you can feel much more of that graphite kind of pulling off the pencil and eating away. Yes, Amanda?
Will they say bonded in the title, or how will you know if they are?
Read the copy. That's why there's always copy. When you're looking on the website, there's information. Don't just ever buy a product where you just look at the picture and go, oh, that's for me. Learn. Kay's
That's how you
laughing.
get in trouble.
I know, it is, because, and that's how people are like, I bought the wrong thing when they call customer service. I understand the excitement and wanting to buy your art supplies, but do a little bit of research, because how do you know what's good quality and what's not? A price does not, just because something's inexpensive doesn't mean it's a good value, okay? Just because something is really expensive does not mean that's the best thing out there. Oh my gosh, that must be what I need to have, okay? Always read it and do your research. Because we have pencils that cost more than this set right now that are not bonded. So, in different brands. So anyway, so that's the set that we're going to be using today. I will probably use, when I'm doing my drawing, probably a 3B so it's easier for you guys to see. I would not use something that probably dark if I was doing my own drawing at home, because I like really nice control of the line. When I shade, I don't put the pencil down sideways. I actually am using line to shade, so I like a little bit more control, and then I would go into some of the darker ones where I need to accent that and make something richer. So, and what I mean by that, let's, no, it's over here, is this. So, this is a good example of when we talk about paper. This looks very creamy. I'm sure, does it look creamy on you guys' monitors, or is it pretty white?
It's a little creamier on yours.
Okay, it's like, here it is like a cream paper. It looks like Arsha's cream colored watercolor paper. This is an example of before I knew a lot about paper and got more into researching it. Paper that is acid free, it's not cotton, but it's an acid-free drawing paper. It's a decent weight. It grabs the pencil really nicely, but as I'm working on this, just with exposure to the air, it starts going from a nice bright white to very cream colored. So I ended up doing this drawing on something different because it was a commission for a judge and I did not want it to be cream colored paper. But the example that this is for is, you can see where I've used very fine lines, more along like the 2H here for these backgrounds. This is actually line and shading, all right? None of this is turned on its side smudged. It's all line. Then when I'm going into some of these darker areas, I'm using 4, 5B, 6B for some of those really black blacks. You know, you can see that very close on the eyes. It's obviously not these up here, right? Okay, does that make sense for everybody? And this is a good example of when we talk about negative shape later, positive and negative shape. I'm using the shadow behind the dog's head to imply the shape. There's no outline of his hair here. The shading that I'm doing is what actually cuts and blocks in the shape, so that when the viewer sees that, they actually see that as an outline to this dog. It's not a Westie, it's a Cairn Terrier, which is a little scruffy looking. They're terriers, they're all scruffy looking. What do they call, why do they call them the terror group? Because they're terrors. Just saying. So that's what we're talking about, negative space. I'm using the background, where the background meets the outside of that object. I'm actually drawing the background as opposed to drawing the object itself. Always switch that foreground background as you're working on different things. That will help you see items easier as you're drawing. All right. Okay, so paper that we're going to use. I brought 2 papers along. This is where it's really as much of the nuts and bolts of drawing as it is the actual pencils, guys. Because if you're using typing paper is going to be very slick. You know, just regular photocopy paper. Newsprint. I hate schools using newsprint because although yes, it's very inexpensive, it's not acid-free. Those drawings are going to get worse and worse over time. Newsprint gets very brittle and weak. It doesn't have enough tooth to really grab that pencil to kind of teach you how to feel your lines. And to me, if it doesn't have some tooth to the paper, you can't learn to shade with line because it's not grippy enough. Everything just looks better smudged because it's smoother, and that's the easiest way to go. So we've got the Jerry's Colossal Deluxe Sketch Pad. This is a 60-pound paper. It's acid-free. It's got great tooth. Everything that we've done on this to date, and we've had these in more than a year, right? Mm-hmm. Nothing is yellowed, and that's with pads sitting out here in conditions where it gets swampy in here. I've not had anything not look this nice kind of cool white color. Very pleased with it. Yeah.
Considering the price point for it.
Oh no,
So inexpensive.
it's crazy great. So, and I like a 60-pound or heavier paper, and this actually feels to me more like in performance like an 80-pound paper with some tooth than it does a 60-pound paper, which makes the paper snob in me very happy. Then this is something they used to call cartridge paper when I was in school, or even, I guess, bond paper sometimes. This is the Union Square pad. This is smooth drawing paper. This is actually 80 pounds, and it's got a slight tooth to it. I think it has less tooth than the Colossal, but it's 80 pounds, so it's a little bit heavier weight. So for more final drawings, where like, say you're trying to do like drawings to get into competition or something like that, you're less likely to wrinkle something when you're trying to mat it and frame it. The heavier the paper weight is. I'm not saying to go to 300-pound paper and like be like, oh, well, she said go heavier, you know. That's not necessary. That can actually be kind of unwieldy and give some problems all of its own with that. But this is a great weight paper right here. Either one of these, I think the tooth being on this 60-pound paper being slightly more actually compensates and makes them pretty even, don't you think, Katie? Mm-hmm. So, so those are the two types of paper that yes, Frida.
Cynthia on YouTube is asking if you want to become a graphite artist, what types of paper should you be looking for?
We will try to go into a paper episode later because I'm afraid if we have a lengthy discussion about this, we're going to not get to the drawing. And if you'll remind me when we're drawing, if we're not having a lot of questions, Frida, reiterate that, and I can maybe talk about that while we're doing the drawing. It's good to get, if you're wanting to do pencil work, like be a pencil illustrator, even looking at Bristol board, illustration board, things like that, where it's heavier, where it's more durable for repeated erasing. That's another thing why you want that heavier paper, is because everybody likes to erase if need be, and the more enthusiastically you tend to erase, the more you're going to damage a lighter weight paper. So some stuff like Bristol and stuff like that are really good ones to actually, an illustration board, if you're going to get into that kind of thing, would be the thing to do, in my opinion. All right, let's see, where did my notes go? Yes, Jerry Colossal sketch pad, those are actually $25 for 100 sheets of paper right now. I know, $25.69 on super sale for this giant size. Yeah. They make smaller ones. This is 18 by 24. You know what you can do with this? You can cut it down. You know what you can't do with a 9 by 12? Make it larger. So you can always take your sketchbook, you can put a piece of tape and tape it off and do 2 on a sheet. That's 200 sheets of paper, essentially. I always say you can always make something, can't make something smaller, bigger for this. Right? Okay. Better to get out and really move when you're drawing. All right. And the Union Square drawing pad, sadly, we couldn't get those manufactured anymore. It was one of our pads. Those are on closeout, $13.90 for that great 14 by 17. So, so that's an incredible price too for a little bit heavier weight paper. All right. We're going to be using the Coom 2-hole magnesium pencil sharpener. This seems like nothing. Like it's just this little weaselly doodad. No, these guys make some really heavy duty blades, but it's a very inexpensive sharpener. I think they're less than $3, but those magnesium blades are super durable. These will last you a really, really long time. So that's what I'm using today with this.
Is that the watch your fingers one?
No, that was the what was that brand? No, that was, yes, that bled for a long time, didn't it? That was one of those brass ones. It was a great sharpener, apparently for skin as well. All right. Yeah, no, these are, that's why I included these, because they're pretty dummy proof, because I'm a dummy. So, accurate dial-a-point pencil sharpener. This is a pencil sharpener that you can actually close, so you can put it in a pocket or whatever. It's not gonna open up. You can actually open that up and get different point sizes. So you can get, you know, a bigger, fatter, wider point. Goes down up from 1 to 5, and then closes back up. So if you like a very narrow point, especially if you're working with softer pencils, you can get that just by adjusting that. So that's also one that's very popular that people like, just because it's closed. You can put it in a pocket. It's not gonna get shavings all in your pocket. The Accurate Vanish 4-in-1 eraser. They come in this little sleeve, which is great because it keeps dust and dirt and grime from getting on that. If anybody's ever had a white vinyl eraser, you know they turn into dirty mush. So it's got a little sleeve where you can kind of tear it down as you go. It's a great 4-in-1 eraser. I don't, 4 sides and erases, I guess. They erase everything and very gently.
And very neatly.
Yes, a lot of people like kneadable erasers. I included that because some people just insist that they're perfect. They're great for charcoal to me on heavier paper because you can kind of blot up some dust. You could also do it on this if you're using those softer leads. Since I tend not to use as soft of a lead, I don't necessarily like the kneadable eraser, and I've got a texture thing, and kneadable erasers are gross. Just my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tacky, and it's like
Everything sticks to them.
it's like taking away a piece of taffy from your 3-year-old who's just been chewing it and chewing it and chewing it, and you know if you don't take it away, they're gonna get it in their hair. It's like that to me. Just that thought just grosses me out. Blech.
Everything sticks.
All right, something more exciting than taffy. The Marie's 4B eraser is my favorite one. These
I
things,
love that thing.
these things will pull up oil pencil and stuff. The Vanish will to a point. This, I think, gets almost everything that you could imagine or not imagine coming up with an eraser. You still want to be gentle with them, but other than a stick eraser for really erasing really detailed stuff, I love this. And they're kind of soft. It's easy to maneuver with them and almost use them as a tool as well. I think this is the one I used when we did the elephant drawing, to draw kind of the negative shape back out. All right, so those are the erasers. We looked at our pencil set. All right. So let's get going with, we talk about sketchbooks all the time. I'm still gonna lecture you. You need a sketchbook, and you need to be, or a big pad like this, but keep your stuff. Get a drawer, or you know, a box, the clamshell boxes. Get a, you know, if you've got something this big.
I get a big rubber band and put it around those and keep them all together.
Yeah, I mean, you can roll them and do that. Keep your stuff, because it's always great to look back and see where you've come back from. I've got these ancient sketchbooks from college. This one goes back to 1990 and 92. I carried this one with me. You can see that it's lost the spine, and I've had to tape it over that time. It's just going back and looking through it and seeing the line quality of my work then versus now is, it makes me very happy, and also a little, you know, but I mean, for then, that was great for me. But it's good to do that. It's those days where you're like, God, I can't get this. Everything is going wrong. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I close it right before you came? Not fast enough. Days where you feel like you're not progressing, you're just not hitting it. It's good to go back through and just say, hey, look, I need to be a little kinder to myself. You know, I'm doing it. I'm getting there. I mean, that versus, let's see, I know I've got some ink drawings in here from when I was in the hospital. I'm crazy. I will take stuff. Okay, look at the difference between that and this. I mean, granted, I was on drugs, so we're gonna allow this center thing here, but look at how much cleaner the line quality is on these, you know? There's your kangaroo, Katie. So just that little bit of stuff, you know, there's a mama dog and her baby with marker. So just sometimes going back, I'm like, wow, I was much like crazier. I can get some nice lines, good line quality there. Always a good thing. Plus, it encourages you to keep working on that sketchbook. Got a shelf full of them. All right, so let's get going with this. Now, this is going to be essentially what I do with a very basic class where, especially if people are curious about drawing, maybe they enjoy drawing, but they've never taken an actual, you know, legit class. The Raleigh Christian Academy, when Sharon does the workshops up there, I do this class with that group because the kids can, you know, come in and work on this. Now, exercises. So we're gonna do the exercises. This is always good to do, you know, especially if you're in the studio not sure what to do and you know you want to draw. Start with some just very loose organic forms. Focus on making things where, you know, it's fluid, it's not herky-jerky, kind of like this. Really getting that from all the way from the shoulder. You can see my shoulder is actually moving my whole arm, but I'm controlling it down to, you know, some little curls and then some nice, big, sizable. It doesn't have to be anything in particular. You're just kind of getting that. What do athletes do? They warm up before a game, right? They just don't jump in and start playing basketball or whatever. They actually have to warm up. You should actually do this as an artist, okay? So you can do that for a little while. Then another good thing, wow, tell that's a soft lead. That's already worn down. It needs to be sharpened. Then after doing that for a little while, kind of maybe 5 minutes, you can do front and back. It doesn't have to be, you're not gonna keep these. You can throw these away, that's okay. Then you're gonna do something like tornadoes, okay? You're gonna start big and you're gonna work at trying to get down and control that from larger to smaller. Everybody's always like, oh, that looks easy, oh my gosh, why is that so hard? It's just all about that little bit of control that you've got. Make them big, make them small. Then, this is always the hardest part that I can't go back from. And I can tell I've been painting a lot and not drawing when I go to do this. Trying to go backwards and do them from the smallest point to the largest point. It's just using different kind of, a different twist of the muscles in your hand. It's also using a little bit of a different mental capability to try to, it's hard for me to talk while I'm doing it. To try to do that switch in your head. Oh, that actually looks better than the other ones. Huh. Okay, well. But it's about muscle control, and it's about developing muscle control and muscle memory, okay? So you can do those. As you do them, you can variate the pressure, maybe push harder, and then as you get lighter, try to push a little lighter, lighter, lighter. Just so you're used to, you know, line control, weight control, you know, how much you're pushing on the pencil, and go from there. All right, so then when you think you've got those mastered, do what we used to call the Japanese lanterns or Chinese lanterns. Do them where you're doing larger, smaller, so you're almost making either an oval or a circle, right? So that you've got that oval shape. Do oblong, do all sorts of things, but just practice that line control. Okay. These don't have to be perfect. Again, we're just practicing. Now, then we're going to go into something that everybody should do. Whether you enjoy these or not, it's not about enjoyment. It's about your practice, okay? You're honing your skills. You're developing just your hand-eye coordination. Just like shooting hoops. Not everybody can go and be Michael Jordan, right? Amanda?
What's that
Right.
quote? If
Not
every
everybody's
artist
Michael.
was once an amateur.
Yes. All right, now, then you're gonna do this, and I always see kids hold their hand like this and do this. I don't want you to do that. I want you to move that whole arm from the elbow. I want you to worry about practicing. You know, I need a darker pencil. Can't do that. Sorry. I can barely see it, so I'm sure you guys can't. Okay. The key is to try to kind of start in the same area, here, here, and in the same area. If it helps you to draw the line. See how those are all parallel, right? I don't have any squigglies going through. This training is what encourages you over time to not do this. How many people do this? Scritchy, 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 scritchy. Oh, I'm drawing this line, and it's this little scritchy, scratchy, right? Chicken scratch. Chicken scratch is the enemy. No chicken scratching. So once you're used to mastering this, it's going to make it so that you feel more confident in, you know, making shapes. This stuff helps too. When you're breaking things down into shapes and circles, you've already got that ability to, you know, kind of move that arm like that. Then, once you do a page with that, you can come back. See how I'm pulling it towards me? Not side to side, pulling it towards me, right? Those are relatively parallel as well. Then, I'm gonna have to take a softer pencil and do this. Then, go in. Now I want you to make them really close together. You can do it from the wrist here. Then, I want you to make them really close together this way. And then, turn it a little and angle it again. Start making those overlap. Start working on, not in a box where you're filling in that whole box, but slowly but surely you're darkening that space. See how we're shading that as we go along, everybody? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that little bit. I turn it a little to the side. See how that value suddenly shifted? Over here is much darker than over there, right?
Do you sharpen the pencil to a point before you start?
Usually by now I would have sharpened this pencil like 4 times because this is already getting soft and hard to control, but it's going to be too much stopping and starting. I like my lines nice and crisp for presentation purposes for you guys to see. This makes sense? Okay, but see how different that is with that shadow? That's much darker right in this area, right? That's how I shaded that dog. All this little cross hatching, just like that. Okay? And when you're working on something, you don't have to do this and try to go up to the thing. You can turn your paper. You can turn your paper. If you're only really proficient like this, still practice going at a different angle, but for the drawing you're going to do, turn it. Make it so that it's easy on you. There's cheat sheet ways around everything, okay? All right, so those are warm-up exercises that you can do and that will help train your hand-eye coordination. It will help train your muscle memory. It will make you better at drawing. Throw that down there. All right. So, get away. Okay. All right, so we are going to do, I think we may only have time to do the hand, but we'll see. We can always come back and do, because we're going to do multiples of these, right, Katie? We'll do next step things.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll do...
All of our beginning ones we'll definitely do follow-up.
Yes.
201s.
All right. Okay. Doing this so I don't get shavings everywhere. All right. Oh, that makes us so baby. Oh, that's what it is the 5 gets the little tiny ones. Look. That's so funny. Okay. All right, so let me get the other one because I know what the other one produces and then I don't have to sit and guess. All right, I'm gonna get this to sharpen it over here. All right, okay, so Katie, do you think the tubey is gonna be dark enough for people to see?
What were you using just a second ago? Yeah, that's good.
Is that dark enough
Yeah.
for sure? Okay, because,
Yeah.
well, I guess I'm looking up at the monitor that the color's a little wonky. I'll sharpen the 2B and the 3B. If it looks like, if people are saying it's a little hard to see, let me know. I
I
just,
can see that.
huh?
We can see it.
Okay. I just don't want it to be too soft. I tend to draw very light, just so I don't have to erase.
Ames, when you
Yes.
get started with that
Questions?
and are on a roll, I just have a philosophical more question.
Oh boy.
One of our viewers would like to know whether you prefer drawing or painting and why. But I figured you could talk about
Okay.
that while you're doing your
All right.
hand thing.
Okay, so when you are getting ready to draw something, and when you go to draw to practice things, everybody always overthinks it. They get these crazy still lives or this or that, or, you know, and then you start getting that kind of overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, this is so hard, because all of a sudden you're introducing multiple things, right, into your, into kind of your plan of what you're gonna do. That book is fantastic at breaking down the psychology of this. You will overwhelm yourself, and what you do is switch into left brain mode, and you're like, can't do it. Left brain takes it as that very logical, very kind of formal, just, no, look at all these things. This is not going to happen, or surely if it does, you are not going to do a very good job on it, right? You have to tell that little left brain to shut up, because he's, and I don't even know if it's a he or she, it's just that nagging Nelly in your head. You want to set it aside and trick it. The best way to do that is draw things that you're used to seeing. What things are we used to seeing? We have two hands, right? And everybody's always like, oh God, you're gonna make me draw a hand. No, you actually look at your hands a lot more than you think, at different angles, at foreshortening and things like that, than you do at pretty much anything else. Your hands and your face. Your face has a whole lot of things going on there, right? So that's just too, again, like a still life, if you suddenly bring in 7 things and it's too much and it's overwhelming, you got one hand, okay? When you're starting, it's good to maybe just make it, you know, put it down so you're more comfortable, if you like. They didn't let us do that in school, so I like weird foreshortening, because it helps me, for me, it helps for people to see what I'm talking about when I'm talking about positive and negative shapes, because I'm not drawing the item. Sometimes I'm drawing the outside of the item, just kind of, because that line, either way, the line that you're drawing is dictating the item, and it's dictating the negative space around it, correct? Okay, so you're going to use that to your advantage. You're not always drawing the positive. You can be drawing that negative. So, I'm trying to think of what I can hold for a long time is more the issue. We're gonna be doing what's called a creative contour drawing. What are you gonna hold your drink up like that for me, Amanda? It's gonna be hard for them to see it.
I can hold it forever.
All right, so it's gonna look different from you guys. You know what, let's take the watch band off. That'll be a little more comfortable.
What's your take on mechanical pencils?
Unless you're gonna get a full-size lead, like that's in a regular pencil, no, because it's not, you're not able to use softer leads in the mechanical pencils or exert a lot of pressure, because it doesn't have that wood barrel to support it. It's just better to have a traditional pencil. They do make lead holders. Create a Color and a couple other people make a lead holder where there's actually a lead that drops in that is then supported by 3 prongs. You can do that because they've got different lead, you know, weights as far as how much graphite or how much clay in them. So that would be fine. And with those, you can buy charcoal, you can buy oil, you know, pigment with oil, like the sepia leads and things like that. So it's just easier to do this, especially when you don't have the drawing skills to begin with. Don't overthink the items, just get regular pencils. Okay? All right.
You mentioned clay in the graphite.
Yes.
One of my questions earlier was, how do you determine based on copy or something like that? Let me try that again.
Hang on one second. I know this is going to be hard for you. Can you pull your head back just a
I can't, okay. Sorry, I'm gonna be like leaning funny on the table. Are you saying when people are buying a set, or when they're buying?
When you're buying pencils, how do you avoid getting pencils that have essentially nuggets of clay in the graphite?
If you're getting pencils where it's not blended together, you're getting really crappy cheap pencils.
Yeah.
it's going to be mixed well. They're mixing it and baking it separate and then putting it in the wood barrel. So as long as it's from a
pencil that's done that.
no, as long as it's from even the 2B pencils and stuff like you use for school, and those are the cheapest thing ever.
Yeah.
Those aren't going to be a problem. It's not like somebody's in a back in a back room mixing it together by hand to make a pencil. So you're perfectly fine. All right, contour means outline, right? Right? Okay. God, this is hard not to lean over.
You can lean a little bit. You just were leaning like way.
Okay, I got a little overexcited on that.
That's why there's erasers.
Nope. No eraser. When you do these contour drawings, you are going to just
Live with it.
wing it.
It's good for you.
And this isn't going to be perfect. What you're doing is you're practicing, okay, guys? This isn't your final finished drawing. We're not shading this. Contour drawing is just practice. What I'm practicing here is using my eye to look at these shapes and balance them with the line and use the positive and negative space within the lines here to measure with my eye how much distance is from this line to this line. Make sure I leave it. I see another line over here that I'm going to have to come back to over here. Did I leave enough room for that? Yes, I think that I did. If you ever have to, you can always take your pencil, hold it up, kind of look at it, from shape to shape, kind of block off, pinch off a place on the pencil that you're using. If I'm measuring my thumb like this, did I leave it enough room between here and here? Yes, I did. It looks right. Okay, are there any other questions, or should I answer the philosophical? Is that Patty?
No.
Okay.
Go for philosophical.
Okay. Painting or drawing, which one? That's the question, right?
Yeah.
Two different animals all together. I like both for very different reasons. You can't have really painting without the drawing background.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I like color, but there's also ways to draw in color as well. So that's not really a I guess a precursor. A nice happy medium is colored pencil. But the issue with colored pencil, where you've got kind of that color versus the kind of made my thumb straighter. Move it back. Versus the pencil form of it is a lot of pigments that go in colored pencil are not light fast or don't have as good a light fastness as I would like as a painter. So that's not really, to me, a super finished, super archival work for like long term. Okay, see how I'm varying the pressure of the line? That was very light because I was kind of trying to decide where I wanted that to go. And then somewhere I want it to be heavier, I can go back and kind of push on that line, if that makes sense. And unfortunately, I'm seeing my hand from a very different angle than you guys are, so it makes it a little harder to kind of see exactly what I'm seeing. All right. Other crazy philosophical questions?
Is now a good time for the paper question?
Okay, what was the question?
The question was, if one is aiming to be a graphite artist, what should they look for in a paper? And along that vein, another viewer asked what your opinion is of the art alternatives paper and what the quality on that.
I've not used the art alternatives paper. If is this the same person that's wanting to be the professional artist?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you're wanting to be a professional artist, you need to get used to practicing on the same type of paper that you're going to, other than the scribbles and the squabbles and the practice at the beginning. You are going to want to start using paper that's going to be your finished paper. And really, just like with watercolor, if you're wanting to be high-end professional and sell work for, good prices, you need to be using cotton paper, in my opinion. Now, cotton paper isn't the same, it doesn't have the sizing in it if it's for drawing and not water media, or it might have some sizing for washes or something like that, but it's not going to be specifically for watercolor. So the prices will be lower than like a watercolor paper, you know, will be. But it's good to use cotton or, you know, a brand name of paper that produces, you know, a lot of different artist papers, even if they're paper pulp, because they're going to have better manufacturing, more consistent manufacturing. Art Alternatives is typically a value line. There's nothing wrong with a value line, but when you're looking at professional things, especially where you're wanting to, you know, sell, just because you're doing pencil sketches doesn't mean that this should be any less of a quality issue with materials than if you're doing oil paint, you know, if that makes any sense. If anything, you can spot cheap, you know, cheap pencils and cheap paper really easily. Just look at some of the Rembrandt drawings, or look at some of the Da Vinci drawings and stuff like that. You can see the tooth of the paper. You can see the materials, you know, on there and how nicely they hold up. That stuff wasn't paper pulp paper, folks, right? That stuff was cotton paper or linen paper. All right. Other weird questions? This seems like the weird question. I keep moving, Katie.
It's hard.
Well, I'm like thinking
Should've
about
got
it, and
you
then
a-
I'm like, I just moved. That's fine. Yes, Frida. It sounded like there was a question in
One
the
of our
forming.
viewers asked if you have an Amy's Essential Favorites for your drawing kit, if she were to want to start up
Like things that I think
for
that
drawing.
like.
Pretty much what's on the list.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the one that makes these lists, guys. I don't, when you see the products for the class that come up, and when you see the notes that come up, and you see the teacher's cart, I do all those. It's not, we don't have a team that does this kind of stuff. This is, Amy comes up with the stuff. So if there's stuff on here that I'm saying these are great beginner tools, it's because I'm the one that actually made the list. So, so it's not something somebody just hands me and we walk on and then I'm like, oh, let's figure out how to use this. These are all things that we have in the studio that I've tried, and that I think are going to, I'm not going to bring something on here, believe me, that I'm like, this is not something somebody should use, but somebody's telling me that this is great for beginners, so I have to use it. I'm never going to do that to you guys, because it's hard enough to kind of start out as it is. You don't need any other, you know, things to impede your progress as artists. Okay, I gotta sharpen this for a minute. I can't sharpen it with my hand. Ah! Did not think this through. Katie's gonna sharpen the pencil for me. Well, I didn't.
For sure.
Right there. Didn't think it. And it's getting ouchy. Okay, so when I'm looking at this, while she's sharpening that, when I'm looking at my hand, I'm seeing it from an angle this way because you guys are over the top, so just be aware of that. But when I'm doing like between the fingers and what I did in here, I'm looking at both the physical shape of the hand, and then I'm also looking at the negative space in between to kind of decide when and where and how I'm going to put that finger in. I'm judging from the tip of this one to the tip of this one, kind of where that space is going to need to be. And for foreshortening, all I'm looking at are the shapes that this makes here and how I'm seeing it, and I'm breaking it down into shapes. I'm not thinking about this as a finger. I'm thinking about this as shapes, from where those lines are, where you bend your fingers, your joints there. I'm looking at joint to joint, just what is that shape in the space in between. Frida, are there other, you guys having any other questions?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
Like, could you take a picture of your hand in that situation and just do it from the picture if you wanted to?
That would probably help, to take a picture, and then especially if you start having hand cramps like me, where you're just like, after a while, you're like, ah! Another great thing, they make this fantastic material called Geltrate. That's a dental thing where they actually cast for dental appliances. Katie probably knows about that. 'Cause
Oh, yeah.
with your
I've done
mom
that a lot of
working.
times.
Yeah. You can mix, take a juice container, the big juice containers that you get at the store, the cardboard, and you can actually mix up plaster in that, or I'm sorry, you mix up the gel trait in that. You actually then cast the plaster in there after the gel trait dries, and then you kind of slowly worm your hand back out and around it.
If you've ever had a retainer or braces or any of those things, it's the pink stuff that you bite down on. Have you ever done that?
Yeah, it was not pink when we did it. It was blue, but that was also a long time ago. So I'm not surprised. And it made so much so, and I don't like my hands, and I wanted another hand to draw from because I figured I have this hand all the time. So why not have, well, no, just a second hand,
No, it
you know,
makes sense.
to draw from. And so I cast my boyfriend's hand at the time, and he was bad about chewing kind of his fingers down at the,
Nummy nubs.
yeah, well, down at the, like the base where the
cuticle?
skin comes, yeah. And you could see all the cuticle marks, and it was like,
Really?
yeah,
That's
it got
cool.
that good of, I mean, registration. It was just like, what in the world? This is awesome. Yeah, it was crazy. Crazy.
As a routine contour sketch for practice, would you normally set a time limit?
No, you could if you wanted, but at first, go easy on yourself. Don't, I mean, unless you're trying to learn to go and sketch live places, where you're gonna have live models and things like that, then I understand to get used to, you know, kind of having that where you're gonna need to do it. But at first, go easy on yourself. You know, you're trying to learn, you're trying to practice, just, you know, something like this. I mean, what time did we start this, Katie? It hasn't been that long.
15 minutes?
Yeah, so I mean, something like this,
Well, and you're talking in
25,
questions.
yeah, which I'm not good at. I start getting that far away. All right.
Do you ever use grids to draw?
Grids are good if you're drawing something like, especially trying to get something on canvas. It's not a good way to train your eye. If all you're doing is painting and stuff like that for a hobby, you don't care about learning to draw, you know, you just want to get to the painting and kind of be done, then I guess that's okay. I would say look into projectors then, because it's going to shorten the time that you have to deal with, you know, by the time you're working on drawing a grid and all that, you could have just taught yourself to draw over time and kind of slap it up easier, because you're doing the same type of thing with these kinds of exercises. You're teaching yourself kind of how to base something off of something else, right? So it's just better not to. Those are better for a time constraint. Or let's say you're doing a landscape, like some sort of Renaissance thing, and you've got all these figures and urns and pillars, and then I would say, yeah, maybe that's not the worst idea.
I've seen
But
people use it so if they're trying to dramatically size something up or dramatically size it down.
Yeah,
keep the
that's-
perspective.
and that's very different. But I can't. That to me starts my left brain into going, what are you doing? This looks. I have problems looking at the grid work and then figuring out where my lines actually go.
Too
So
much going on.
yes.
So I have a couple of viewers that wonder if you could share like what part, like how your hand relates to what you're drawing. I don't know if that makes sense. Like how you decide how to draw it based on what you're looking at.
What I'm doing is, as I'm going along, I'm looking at the form next to it and the negative space and the positive space. Where is this part coming in, interacting with that palm? You know, where's the shape in relation to this? How wide? What's kind of the outer edge of this part as I'm coming down and around here? All you're doing is assessing. You're assessing and you're making quick little notations, right? That's really the only way I know how to explain it. It's you're constantly just judging. How am I leaving enough space from here to here? Am I leaving enough room in between here and here? What angle is that coming down? Does the negative space have a V like that? Yes, that's about that angle. It's just I'm not taking this and doing this because number one, I'm trying to lean over enough so I can see, but also lean back enough where I'm not in the way, so I can't, my balance is kind of skewed from doing this. So if that makes any sense, it's just a balance of that negative and positive shape and what lines you've got down, how that then relates to the next part. And this is, my hand was more like this earlier when I started, and now it's become like this. So I've got kind of this angle like this with the thumb, and then that in the middle for the fingers, and then this with that. But I mean, we're talking about, this isn't a finished drawing. This is just a creative contour drawing, right? Does this look like a hand? Yes. Is it believable with the foreshortening and everything else? Yes. Is it a finished drawing? This is practice. Okay? Absolutely practice. Now, what I would be doing if we had more time is taking that same concept. I make the kids take off their shoe because you know what? They brought their own thing.
Oh, wow.
And especially women,
Yeah.
we're really good at looking at shoes when we go to buy them and studying them, and we know what that outline looks like in our closet when we're looking for a particular pair, right? And sadly, now you know that Amy is a little bit punk rock, and this is my regular shoe that I'd be wearing here. So I have tennis shoes on so that the concrete's not killing me. So I would take that shoe and I would put it somewhere so I've got kind of an angle. Resist the temptation to just set it down flat or prop it up on a box and you know, so you've got just this outline. Because you know what, that's really not as easy as you think, because you've got all sorts of things going on. It's a lot of very complex shapes that you're not having to hold a hand still to do. It's got laces. If it doesn't have laces, I had this girl last year who was all excited when we realized that they were having to take their shoes off, and she was like, I have boots, ha ha ha. And she puts the boot up and it goes, and it was this like, it ended up being the most beautiful, like undulating, just like, she had the most fun with it, but she was so freaked out when all of a sudden it was like a suede boot that was knee high. So all of a sudden there was that kind of cascading effect to it. Don't be afraid if you're, you know, use it where you're looking at it like this, where you've got it at an angle like this, where it's all sorts of different ways, where the tongue is in, the tongue is out, the laces are all messed up. You could tie it all the way up. This type of stuff is the easiest practice in the world because we're used to looking at our hands. We're used to looking at shoes. All you're doing is assessing the lines and the curves and where they are in relationship to each other. It's really not that hard.
My art teacher told me when I was, one of the things that finally made sense is that you're looking at all the different shapes and lines, not at the shoe.
Yes.
You're not looking at your hands. Stop
Everything
looking
is
at your
composed of shapes and form that go up against each other. And that's why sometimes later, Katie, I'm sure in some of your earlier drawing classes, the more advanced you get, you start looking at planes and things like that. I resisted the urge to bring the paper bag. Did you ever do the paper bag where they give you the paper bag? Or even a piece of paper. I drew my winter coat, I don't even know how many times. Like some of the most beautiful, one of my favorite, and I don't think it's in one of these sketchbooks, it's in a different sketchbook, was my winter coat thrown over a chair, and just this one section of where it came together and like all the buttons and the collar and everything, and it ended up being just like the most gorgeous drawing. That, and I had a pair of LL Bean duck shoes that I turned like this, and I did the laces and the grommets and like how the rubber had those little lines, but then the leather was really old and worn because it was my winter boots. And that I ended up doing, not gonna lie, probably 10 different really detailed drawings of it and 3 oil paintings.
That's cool.
Because I got so into that shape of that shoe. So this is what I'm gonna tell people, because we only have a certain amount of time to do this, and I feel like we could have gone further, and we will go further with the next drawing lesson. But I am going to ask all of you to do this that would like to participate. Those who don't, that's totally fine. Those who want to participate but don't want to show, that's totally fine. Do these drawings at home. Do a hand. Okay, date it so you know when you did it. Do a shoe. Date it so you know when you did it. And then at the end of this year, when we do our last drawing class, we're gonna go back and I want you to do it again after that drawing class is done. And I want you to actually post pictures, if you are brave enough, of your before and after, because you're not gonna, if you're good about practicing when we do the drawing classes, you will improve greatly. So, and the people that want to share them in the Jerry's Live group, if you're not a member of the Jerry's Live group, we've got our own private Facebook group on Facebook. Just go to groups and look for Jerry's Live. You have to answer the question that it sends you and submit it to become a member. But it's a great community full of really awesome people that are very supportive of each other, that give each other feedback and ideas. That's a great kind of question sounding board from products to techniques and things like that. Post your pictures there. I will tag me in the comments, okay? Go down, make a comment, tag Amy Gardner-Dean so I can see that what you've posted, and if there's parts that you struggled with or whatever, I'll give you a little bit of feedback on what things to work on, okay? So you don't have to shade these. These are creative contour drawings. Don't worry about shading it. Just practice your line work for this time, okay? Does that seem fair? Are there any last questions, ladies? Everybody's like, what crap, there's homework?
Everybody's in. I got
There's
it.
homework.
I'm in. I'm gonna do it.
There is homework. And I will try to get a chance maybe this weekend I can do a shoe at home once things settle down, because I've got a crazy painting project right now that I'm having to do here at work. So, and once that's all done and sent off to the manufacturer and stuff, we can talk about that then, right, Katie? But it's an undertaking. So, and that's from the regular show stuff that we do. Next week, JL92. We're creeping up there,
That's
folks.
crazy.
Creeping up
Let's have a
there.
party for our 100th.
We need to. JL92 is water mixable oils. It's going to be just the very basic of what you would need to get started. We're going to dispel the myths where everybody's like, oh, that just means I can paint with water. No, 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 no. We're going to go into that and explain why that's not a good idea. That's really for cleaning brushes more, thinning it just a little bit. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that it can be used with traditional oils. We're going to talk about how and why, and what products you need to be using with them, which, FYI, it's regular oil painting stuff you can use with it. Brushes, palettes, the whole 9 yards. All it is just an oil paint that's got a surfactant in it that's made to be able to thin with water so that you can actually clean your brushes without solvent. All right, no more questions then. Okay, well, you have your homework.
I can't wait to see everything.
I'm excited. So let's.
We do have people asking if you will do a sketchbook tour for them, so I think maybe we should
A
post
sketch-
something later on and so they can see some of your stuff.
Oh, sure, yeah.
We
I
can
can even post in the group.
That's
Yeah.
what I say, we'll do a little
So,
video where you can kind
okay.
of show them what's in
Which,
your...
if you haven't been to the group in a little while, everybody wanted to know what my studio looked like last Sunday, right? I posted pictures of my studio from the impetus of a dining room with a closet ripped out because of the plaster wall being damaged. The house is from the 1880s. It is a project in and of itself, but it was our old dining room, and a leak in the roof negated that the plaster walls had to come out in one spot, and it's been redone and repainted and all sorts of cool stuff. So check that out if you're curious about seeing my studio. So, all right, water mixable oils. We'll see you guys next week. Take care and happy drawing. My throat got better as we went,
Yeah,
but I also took cold medicine like